We're good. All right. Hey, thanks everyone for joining us on this chilly Thursday night. At least here in Oklahoma, it's chilly. Um, we are excited to be with you and share with you some information about a body system that we all have and have had since the beginning of time, and about a wonderful company that has presented a wonderful opportunity for lots of us. So um, let's go ahead and just dive right in. My name is Aaron Heilaman. I am a pharmacist. I got my Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the University of Oklahoma in 2007. And so I've been a practicing pharmacist for the last 10 years and own a store in Ada. And I kind of got to know Daniel through some, his wife's family are very, very good friends of mine. And so that's kind of how we met and got together. Anyway, let's get started with understanding the science and the basics of the endocannabinoid system, which again is a system in the human body. So, why a lot of people will ask the question, well, why is it named that? Well, as with anything in medicine, it's named after something or someone. And they discovered the plant first, the cannabis plant, and so they named it after the plant. So cannabinoid. The neurotransmitters of our endogenous body system, the endocannabinoid system, resembles components of the cannabis sativa plant. That's therefore why it was named that. And so we'll start out with some basic history. I'm going to go through some of these slides pretty quick, guys, because some of the stuff is you can just read it for yourself, and then again you can go back it because it'll be recorded. But at the very end, I will take questions. I don't have a time limit, so as long as you want to stay, I'll ask questions, or answer any questions that y'all have. So, but the history of cannabis is very interesting, and if you ever have time, you should look up the history of cannabis in the United States because it's a little sketchy how we've gotten to where we've gotten. But it's one of the earliest known cultivated plants. It's been farmed for over 12,000 years. It's been, as you can see, it's been used for a very long time, about 1500 BC or so, for its medicinal purposes. There's lots of other really cool facts about it. When the colonies were first settled here in the United States, George Washington grew it, Thomas Jefferson grew it. There was actually a tax that if you grew plants, if you were a quote unquote farmer and you grew things, you could get fined, you could get taxed if you did not grow hemp because it was used for so many different things and so useful. So that's pretty interesting. But what's the stigma? Well, it all happened in about 1937 when the Marijuana Tax Act was passed. But, basically everyone was afraid that it was causing people to get high and do illegal things. But so still to this day, there's just a huge misunderstanding. There's misinformation and basically just people aren't educated about it. That the simple fact of the matter is just like in humans where we have a male and a female, all plants have the same thing. And so in this particular plant, the male plant is the hemp plant. So the hemp plant does not really produce buds. Buds is where THC is contained. Now, THC is the part of marijuana that can give you the psychotropic, high, quote unquote, high feeling. And so, again, that's contained in the buds, which are produced in the female plant, the marijuana plant. And so, again, intrinsically by nature, the hemp plant is very low in THC, but it's high in CBD, which is cannabidiol, and that's what has been studied a ton and has great medical benefit. And then just the opposite, the marijuana plant, very low in CBD, but very high in THC. So again, just misunderstanding is a lot of why there's such misconception about hemp. This next slide here, it's talking about endogenous cannabinoids. Those are the ones that our body naturally produces. It has since Adam and Eve have been on the planet. Our body makes these cannabinoids, and again, this is what they were named. But the reason they work is because those substances, chemically, from a chemistry standpoint, look almost identical to these two that are in our body. Endogenous just means that it's made within our body. And the two main ones, as you see there, are anandamide and 2-AG, which is 2-arachidonyl glycerol. The 2-AG is the more abundant one in the body. But interesting, anandamide, it was named it was named from a Sanskrit word meaning bliss or happiness. You can see in some of the places it's found, chocolate produced during female ovulation. That's why we give chocolate to women when we're trying to have babies, but not always. It's interesting. This has actually come to find out what is responsible for the runner's high forever. They thought that was endorphins, that you produced endorphins to get a runner's high. Well, the research actually showed that endorphins are too large of a molecule to cross what's called the blood-brain barrier and cause that sensation, that euphoric sensation. So further research showed that it's actually anandamide. Anandamide is necessary to convert short-term into long-term memory, which is very interesting. And it controls cortisol levels. If any of you know what cortisol levels are, high cortisol levels equal bad news for the human body. It's causes very, very high stress, can drastically alter hormone levels. And so very high cortisol is not a great thing. And then I put in here, it's broken down by FAH, F-A-A-H. Won't go into that very much, but there's a slide later that'll be very important. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. And then 2-AG, again, more abundant. It's found in lots of places. I think it's very interesting that it's found in breast milk. It's particularly highly concentrated in the colostrum, which is the very first breast milk that a female produces when they've had a baby. And so obviously, if it's in there, that's a big kick, that's a kickstart, because that's one of the most important things that babies get is colostrum. So, and then you can see some of the other stuff it does. Just a huge neurotransmitter in our body. So this is just a picture of the phyto meaning plant, phytocannabinoids that come from the cannabis plant. And if there's any chemistry people on here, you can see that those two, anandamide and 2-AG, and these two, they don't look identical on paper, but if you were to look at those in a laboratory, those things are almost identical. They are very, very similar. And that's how come they can have such a potent and drastic effect in the human body, is because they go in there and mimic exactly what those do. So again, I've mentioned that they're a neurotransmitter. It's the largest, the ECS is the largest neurotransmitter system in the human body. All vertebrates have an ECS. So if it has a spinal column, it has an endocannabinoid system. And then, so it's very important. This next bullet point is one of the more important things I talk about, is to understand that these are actually hormones. They're not the same as like an endogenous or as a hormone like you would think of thyroid hormone or estrogen in women or testosterone. But those are hormones that go all throughout the body and have effect. But these are neurotransmitters that are used, and our body produces them upon need and uses them up very, very, very quickly. But nonetheless, they're a hormone. And so if hormones get low, we need to replace them. Same theory as thyroid. If you have a thyroid condition and your body's not producing enough thyroid, you're going to go to the doctor and they're going to do what? They're going to put you on thyroid replacement. Same thing here. There's actually now a accepted medical term, actually a diagnosis code of CECD, which is clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. So again, if they're low, they need to be replaced for your body to function properly. The endocannabinoid system has many, many functions in the body, but the primary one that research has kind of proven out is that it is the number one system in our body to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is just a fancy term for neutral. Our body is designed to work best under stable, neutral, non-stressful environments. Okay, think about cavemen. They were a fairly stress-free people. Now, if they were getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger, their stress levels went way, way, way up. But if you escape the tiger, everything else is fairly, and so our body doesn't want to always be in fight or flight mode, but it doesn't always want to be kind of down and, where you're sleepy and tired and depressed either. It wants to be neutral. That way our body can function properly. And the endocannabinoid system maintains that better than anything else that we have in our bodies. So that also affects immune function, leading you to have better immune responses and a stronger immune system. And then cell life cycles and pre-programmed cell deaths, very, very cool. Pre-programmed cell death is apoptosis. All the cells in our body are constantly dying off and being remade. You don't have a single cell in your body that was there 7 years ago. Everything is constantly being redone, from liver to skin to everything. So what happens is if we have cells that are malfunctioning and the pre-programmed cell death doesn't kick in, or the apoptosis doesn't kick in, that's what leads to a cascade of events which eventually will lead to cancer. Okay, and so if you can prevent these cells that are damaged, if you can prevent them from replicating instead of being sloughed off, then you have a great reduction in the cancer incidence. It's also very neuroprotective, helps with nerve function, stress recovery. It's an incredible inflammatory mediator. Too much, inflammation is we have to have it, but too much of it will kill you. All right, heart disease is mainly inflammation. Diabetes is an inflammatory process, but in the same breath, if you don't have an inflammatory response, that can also kill you. Think of people, HIV and AIDS is the best example. If your immune system and your inflammatory system does not kick in, then you're, something that a normal healthy person could fight off very easily. It can get into their lungs or something, and the inflammatory response isn't there, and the immune response isn't there to kill off something that would normally take care of. Reproduction is interesting. There's some research going on right now for the highest level of CB receptors in the human body. They've always thought was in the brain, but recently they've actually found out that it's in the uterus. And so they're using that information to do research to try to help with infertility and with women who have had miscarriages or multiple miscarriages, to try to see where that link is and see if the ECS can actually help in those conditions to either help with implantation or stop the miscarriages. This is just a picture of actually exactly what happens with anything. Obviously we're talking about the endocannabinoid system, and so it all works on CB or cannabinoid receptors. There's two main kinds in the body. There's CB1 and CB2 receptors. Very fancy naming that they come up with there. But this is just a picture of, if you have CBD, which are the little green dots floating in your bloodstream, and they match a receptor, kind of like a lock and key, once that couples up, it immediately signals a response for our body to do something or to stop doing something. And so, again, because we talked about the chemistry of them being so identical, this is kind of like me putting the key to my truck in my truck and causing a response. Whereas if I tried to put the key to my truck into Daniel's house, it wouldn't work very well. And so that's kind of what a lot of our medicines that are created by Big Pharma, they're more the latter, where it's not the exact right key fitting the right lock. And so, but this happens to be almost identical, and so it works very well. You can read these for yourselves. I have studied a lot of this stuff. Some of the information that's out there is unbelievable. There's over 23,000 papers that deal with the endocannabinoid system or CBD or the combination of, and how they can do drastic things in these different disease states. Again, we don't claim a cure, but we've seen some drastic and dramatic improvements. And, again, I don't promote this, but I've seen some things that flat out almost are cured. So my favorite one is, we don't have a lot of time for stories, but I'll tell you my favorite one. I've got a lot of good ones, but Parkinson's, you can get on YouTube and watch videos of people with Parkinson's that have dramatic results to hemp and, marijuana also, but hemp and CBD. And we have a friend here in town who has a really, really severe case of Parkinson's. And we challenged him to try it. And he's a very, very smart guy, very educated. And he researched it for a few days and finally called me and said, I'm ready to try it, and did. And after about 3 days of being on a hemp CBD oil, the man walked through the doors of my pharmacy just like I walk. You would have never known he had Parkinson's. And he's a guy that most of you are probably familiar with, Michael J. Fox. Uh, his case is more severe than Michael J. Fox's. Just unbelievable amounts of uncontrollable tremors and shaking. And again, after 3 days, walks through the doors of the pharmacy, and every person that works in my store they couldn't believe it. And it was amazing. And he's not the only one. We've seen several other people with Parkinson's have dramatic effects. Personally, I take it for sleep. You see sleep listed there. It's been, I've never done a sleeping pill, but this has, changed changed my sleep patterns unbelievably. It's been amazing. My wife as well. It's helped my wife with her anxiety and stress. And so the next slide, just more things. Again, people don't always believe this when we're presenting it or telling them stories, but the research is out there. Just go look it up. You can Google it. You can simply Google, CBD and diabetes, and you'll find a ton of stuff that's actual and factual. And the most encouraging is at the very end there, the difficult to treat things, things like migraines and fibromyalgia. There are millions and millions of Americans that are affected with these problems. And unfortunately, as good as science is in America, we just don't have things that really can control and treat these in every person. But I can tell you that, again, as a pharmacist, I see lots of folks with all these conditions, and I have at least 12 now, a dozen people in 4 months that no longer take migraine medicines. All they use is hemp oil, and they don't have migraines anymore. And I have a couple of people that don't take it every day to prevent it. They just take it like they would like Imitrex or Maxalt or one of those to treat when they feel a migraine coming on. And it works better for them than any of those other medicines ever did, and much safer with no side effects. So, and then things like super hyperinflammatory conditions like psoriasis and Crohn's disease. There's some really, really good research and some good studies already out there showing how, this can really, really help. What's important about that is, again, we have some treatments for those things, but none of them are great, and they're all crazy expensive. We're talking about $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per dose to treat some of this stuff. So, again, if you find something that's more affordable, just as effective or more effective and much safer, that's a great way to go. So that brings us kind of to the product. And what's one thing that you want to look for in a product is that it's a full spectrum hemp oil. You can isolate anything. They've isolated THC and made drugs out of it. They being big pharma. Things like Marinol or Dronabinol. That's THC synthetically created in a lab. You can isolate CBD from anything. But what's interesting is when you have a full spectrum hemp oil, there's over 400 active ingredients in that combination. Okay, so when you sum all those things together and you get a greater benefit, they've termed that the entourage effect. And again, that's just multiple things working together to create synergy and working as a team to create a bigger effect. And so a full spectrum hemp oil, obviously it has CBD in it. But it has other cannabinoids too. It's got CBG, CBN, CBDA, about, I think, around a dozen or more cannabinoids in it. It's also got omega fatty acids, which you have to have for brain function. You have to have for heart function. So those are two pretty important things. Great source of vitamins. It's almost a multivitamin in and of itself. Now, if you take a multivitamin, I would not recommend stopping that because there are other things in those, but again, this is a great source of vitamins that promotes healthy skin. People have used, now our oil would not be a good one to use on the skin because it's sweetened, and that can It's not going to hurt your skin, but it kind of reduces some of the effects. But there are products out there that have hemp oil in them that are basically skin products. And that last point, it keeps cell membranes flexible. Of really cool studies going on. And again, this goes back to cell life and cell apoptosis. But if you build a healthier cell, it has less chance to obviously get damaged and lead to really bad outcomes like cancer. And then there's a new study going on in Germany right now with mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of every cell. Everything that we do that requires energy, it originates from mitochondria. That's the stepping stone for energy in our bodies. And so the research is on CBD and how it makes mitochondrial walls more pliable, more flexible, therefore stronger, less likely to get damaged, and they double their output of energy production just by being that way. So that's pretty cool. And so again, we're going to talk about the company Zelease that we're with here soon, but we basically have two different hemp CBD oils that we carry. The first one being Pure 7. This one, and again, we're talking about what we're looking for, or what I would say, again, as a pharmacist, knowing pharmacology and how things work physiologically in the body, we're looking for something our body can use. Not all oils are created equal because our body was not designed to use oils very well. So in essence, we're just very, very inefficient at processing oils. So if you take a dose of fish oil or vitamin D, or anything that's a oily, fatty type substance, our body just doesn't use it very well. It has to go through the liver. The bile contributes to it. And so after you take that dose, about an hour or so later, it's done enough work that we can absorb anywhere from 6 to 15% of a dose of any oily substance. It's you would agree that's very, very inefficient. We're wasting 85% plus of anything that we take. Well, if you take that same oil and you somehow can make it water soluble, you flip the script. Now you can use 85% of that dose and only lose 15% of it. And that's what they've done with both the products we carry. This one is Pure 7. Again, so by being able to use 85% of the product, you lower your dose, which again, we all would agree is probably the safest thing to do. You save money because you're using less. And the way it's done is really cool because it's the exact same way your body would do it once it processes through the liver and the bile. It creates what's called a micelle, which your body can basically tuck away the fatty substance. It's kind of your payload there in the middle, that middle round blue dot. And it'll save it to where it actually gets deposited into the blood where you can actually process it and use it. We can't do anything if it doesn't get into the blood. So that's pretty cool. And then our newer product that's been around for just under a month is called Ultracell. And it uses that same micelle technology to be able to get a quick onset, but it also uses liposomes, which we'll talk about on the next slide or something. But so what the liposomes do is create an extended release type product. Ultracell, it's revolutionary. It's a proprietary product to the company's Zelease that we'll talk about. And I'll go more into detail on Ultracell here in just a little bit because we've got some slides that show some studies. Because Zelease owns this, we can actually do studies on this product. A lot of CBD oil companies and hemp companies will use claims that are from other research. CBD has been shown to do XYZ. Absolutely, that's true. But there's no studies on their exact product. So that's what's awesome. And again, I don't risk my reputation in town and with my customers and patients and doctors in town unless I can really 100% stand behind a product, and I can do that with this one. So it's really cool. Again, it's good. So the Ultracell compared to the Pure 7, it has more CBD, 25% more per bottle. It doesn't have sodium benzoate as a preservative, which is not a big deal for most people, but there's a few people that thought that was a huge deal, and the company listened to them and said, well, we'll fix it. And so it's been preserved with by taking water out of it, and also with more natural, like the acai berry actually is a preservative in it. So we have greater absorption, and it's pet friendly. This one's sweetened with a little different sweetener than the Pure 7. Pure 7 you cannot give to animals because it's sweetened with xylitol, and xylitol cannot be processed by dogs particularly. I don't think cats do a very good job of it either, but if you have cats, go ahead and give it to them. It won't be that big of a deal. I'm just kidding. But Ultracell is pet friendly. You can give it to pets, and actually, they're, I haven't seen any actual studies because I'm not able to get pet studies, but we have seen, people that have dogs that have really bad hip dysplasia or arthritis, or even dogs with seizures, and it's helped them tremendously. So that's really neat. Here's the liposomes. And so again, the micelles are designed to make it water soluble to where as soon as you put it under your tongue and that in that water area, it'll absorb and go to work quickly. Liposomes are designed a little differently to where they hide the nutrient or the payload, or in our case, the hemp oil. They hide it away until it gets through the GI tract, and then it starts to dissolve and be absorbed. So that's the awesome technology. Combining micelles and liposomes gives you very quick onset, but also it stays in your system longer because we're delaying some of that absorption until later in the GI tract. That's pretty neat. These are just because this is one of the first questions people ask us. These are just suggestions. These are things, we don't have, again, we don't have big pharma, Pfizer or Lilly or Johnson & Johnson pouring tons and tons of money into this. So you're not going to see studies on dosing. Having said that, we have had toxicity studies. There have been studies in children and adolescents with seizures who have been given up to 1,500 milligrams per day of CBD, and they called the studies off because they weren't able to cause these kids to have any negative side effects. And the doctors were like, hey, there's nobody that's ever going to need this much. So for comparison, one dose of Ultracell has 16.6 milligrams. All right. So if you drink, you'd have to drink over 100 bottles to even come close. And so it's extremely safe, non-toxic. And so dosing, basically for a guy like me who I only take it for sleep, I take it at bedtime. So one dose a day, perfect for me. If you've got a little more severe condition, let's say something like neuropathy, or, if we've had people that have, really migraines have affected them where they have 3, 4, 5 a week, we tell them to take it twice a day. And then, some severe conditions like Parkinson's, or if you have multiple things like, you're a chronic pain patient and you also have depression and anxiety, and maybe you have migraines on top of that, you may need 3 to 4 doses a day. My Parkinson's friend that I was telling y'all about, he'll sometimes do 6 doses a day. Now, he normally does not ever do a full 1 ml dose. Sometimes he'll do a half to 3/4, but he just has to take it a lot more frequently because his body burns through it so much faster. And so, again, because it's so safe, you can start with an aggressive dose, see what it's going to do for you, see what kind of effects you're getting out of it, and then you can back it off and tailor that dose to what's giving you the same effect, but you're using less so that you're saving money. Because the only side effect I've been able to come up with for hemp oil is that it's not cheap. And even if you go buy a poor quality product, which there's a ton of hemp CBD oils out there, and not all of them are good, and not all of them are bad. I know that, but the one thing that they all have in common is they're not cheap. And then obviously I always get asked a lot too, is it safe for kids? Well, I put on there the state of Indiana. I don't know, most of you guys I think are from Oklahoma that are on here, but the state of Indiana is very similar to the state of Oklahoma in that we're kind of in a race to see who's going to adopt medical marijuana last. And so very conservative states. And in the state of Indiana, the only thing that CBD is approved for, the only thing, is for kids with seizures, right? Adults with seizures, sorry, you can't use it. But if you're a kid, you can use it. So that's very interesting. And so then my personal point of view, I have a 3-year-old, I have a 7-year-old, and I have a 10-year-old. And I would absolutely 100% use it in any one of them if they had a condition I felt they would benefit from it. What are the concerns? There are, people have concerns about it, and some of them are valid. But again, education is the key. Is it legal? Obviously, it's legal. I'm a pharmacist. I have a lot at stake and to risk if I'm doing something illegal. So the Agricultural Act of 2014 made it legal. And sorry, got to readjust. The federal requirements are that any hemp CBD oil has to contain less than 0.3% THC. That's a federal guideline. The Pure 7 product guarantees that, and the Ultracell has a guarantee that it has flat 0% THC. So it's categorized as an over-the-counter supplement. It's not FDA approved, so insurances won't cover it or anything like that. But again, we've talked about how safe and effective it is. Will it show up on a drug screen? Everybody wants to feel better, but nobody wants to lose their job to do it. So almost every screen out there is looking for THC. This has 0 THC in it, so it will not show up on a drug screen. We have members of our team, but also I have tons of customers and patients who use this and have government jobs, so they get tested frequently. I've never had one fail it. I personally took a urine screen. I have a friend who's a pain doctor, and I took this product. At the time I was doing this, specifically gearing up to take this test, I had taken the product twice a day for 3 weeks, and I went and took the screen, and it was negative. And so then I had another person that I knew was taking it at least 3 times a day, and I had him go to a different doctor and use a different test, and his passed. So I'm very confident in saying that we've even had people take hair follicle tests. He was going through an adoption process, and they did a hair follicle test, and he had been on it for a couple of weeks, and his was clean. So in America, we are kind of trained now to say, hey, they're giving me this new drug, medicine, whatever it is, but I'm already on XYZ medicine. Is it going to be okay? It's a very, very, very valid question. And there are a couple that I would be a little bit cautious about. Now, again, if this were me, I would still take the hemp oil. I would just dose myself differently. But I've spent a ton of time researching this particular subject, and the 4 that you see there are the only 4 that I would really, really be even concerned about. Warfarin or Coumadin is a blood thinner. Digoxin is a heart medication. Phenytoin is a seizure medication. And the thing about those 3 drugs are they're what's called narrow therapeutic index drugs, to where if you change the amount that your body gets just a tiny bit, you can have dramatic outcomes. And so that's why I would say caution with those. And then chemotherapy is funky. And so anybody that's on cancer, I think, should be on hemp oil. That's just my opinion. But they also need to talk to their doctor and say, hey, this is what I want to try and why I want to try it. And that way they can tailor it to whatever chemotherapy regimen. So that brings us to my perspective. As a pharmacist, again, I know medicines and I know pharmacology and how things work together. So I do not tell people to stop their prescription medications. I say, hey, let's add this and see what effects you are feeling. Because it's still amazing to me how someone says, hey, I've got neuropathy. Will this help it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will help it. And then they come back a week later and they say, hey, my neuropathy's better. I'm sleeping better. I had this twitch in my arm that I've had forever. It's gone. It's amazing the different benefits that they get that we weren't even thinking about. But don't stop your prescriptions. If you start feeling tremendously better, if you're on Ambien and you have been for 5 years, but now you're sleeping better than you ever have after a couple of weeks, talk to your doctor about getting off Ambien or getting off something else that it's helping. But don't just stop them. It's very, very encouraging to help with gaps in therapy or things that are difficult to treat, like we talked about, migraines, Crohn's, other stuff. And then side effects, certain drugs that actually do a really, really good job in a disease state, but have side effects. This can help with some of the side effects. So, I am saying that this product is absolutely changing people's lives for the better. So again, we'll get to questions later. So we're going to switch gears real quick. Daniel's going to switch the slide presentation. And we're going to talk about Zalease. Zalease is a company that it's a network marketing company that has the basically the goal of being the Amazon of health and wellness. And it was founded. Do you have that other slide presentation? It was founded in 2012 by Mr. Stephen Thompson and his lovely wife Angie, and since then it has grown. And again, they're only they only deal in health and wellness, and they have hundreds of products that are top of the line, because the company also has a chief medical officer by the name of Dr. Derek Da Silva, who is a world-renowned physician. He is an MD out of New Jersey. He is the founder and the current CEO of the American Nutraceutical Association. He's also on the American Geriatric Board. So he's very well respected. He travels and does presentations and speaks to, people pay lots of money to go see him speak. And he is, sorry, we're getting close, I think. There we go. So that's Stephen and Angie. I said 2012. It's founded in 2015, sorry, by Stephen and Angie. And then that's Dr. D over there. Again, he's the chief medical officer. If he does not create or, if he does not in his lab make the product, which he does, Ultracell, then he personally vets every product that Zalease carries and sells. Him and his team actually vet them all out. So that's awesome to know that there's a guy a whole lot smarter than me doing that. Stephen and Angie's history is, they've been in network marketing for almost 20 years, been very, very successful, but had seen the good and the bad with network marketing and wanted to do one their way and didn't want anybody else kind of tell them that they couldn't do it. And so they created Zalease, and that's what we talked about. We have over 100 really, really great products to choose from. But Zalease is actually the combination of two Swahili words put together that means to multiply nutrition. And so we'll get to something really cool about that here in a minute. But so this is another, again, the hemp CBD oil is the star of the show for Zalease. It's the star of the show for a lot of companies because it's doing so many amazing things. But the product that Zalease carries that I'm actually most excited about is this one right here. It's called Zen Arterosil. And it has the ability and the potential, based on the research and the way it's still proven out, to completely change how we deal with heart disease throughout the world, not just in America, but throughout the world. And so if you think about it, 55 years ago, the number one killer of Americans was what? It was heart disease. 25 years ago, heart disease. 25 days ago, heart disease. So we've been treating it for that long, but we're really not doing a great job. This can completely change that. It actually goes to the root of the problem and instead of trying to fix things that don't necessarily cure you. So, we could go into the science of that, but that would take me too long. But again, this is a product that I take every day and I do not miss it. I miss my hemp oil every once in a while, but I do not forget to take my Zen Arterosil. And then again, we talked about Ultracell. So again, the star of the show. It's the gold standard, guys. That's plain and simple. It's again, for a person who's known about hemp CBD oil for about 10 years, there hasn't ever been one that I was like, yep, I can get behind selling that. This one is it. There's not one better that I've come across. We talked about full spectrum hemp oils and the importance of not having just a single ingredient formulation. So this is what's cool. Again, because Zelise owns this and Dr. De Silva is the guy who created it, he can do his own test. He can do testing on it. I said his own. It's not. These are tests done by outside facilities. And what you're looking at is basically this is how much is absorbed and how much stays in the system over time points. Okay. So what they did was they give these people a dose, and at 45 minutes, you can see it's got its peak onset within 45 minutes, right? So then they took their blood again every 45 minutes and they did it out to about 4 hours. And that's what you see. That is incredible. Because what you're looking at is that at time point 1 being the same as time point 5, that drug has not left the serum. It's still in the blood serum doing the work that ultimately we want it to do. And so that's extremely encouraging. And again, that's proof and science that other CBD oil companies just don't have. And so he's right now, Dr. De Silva and his teams are doing research out to about 10 to 12 hours on this to see how long it actually does stay in the system. Again, the whole goal is, if instead of my Parkinson's friend, instead of taking 6 doses a day, if we can get him down to 2 doses a day and still have the same benefit, that saves him money. And over the long term, although this is very safe, it's even safer if you have to use less of it. So it's very cool. And again, because Elise owns it, they can do these studies. So how do you share it? It's real simple. If you decide to become involved in this company, you'll get what's called mini bottles, and you just challenge people and say, hey, listen, you're having a hard time sleeping. I got something you should try. You have neuropathy, you have migraines. I got something you should try. Just share it. And again, the dosing is based on that person's need. So again, Zelise is the pay it forward company that it's Multiply Nutrition. So what's awesome, and this is something else that it's hard for me as a business owner to fathom this, but it's ingrained in. This is just what it is in the company. Every dollar spent. Anytime I go to Zelise and buy something, anytime Daniel does or Carly or anybody, they automatically provide nutrition packs to kids in Haiti. So if I go spend $1, they send a kid in Haiti who's malnourished a nutrition pack to change their life, basically, because malnutrition is not what you see on TV, these kids with big fat bellies. And, malnutrition does hit in America, but nothing like some of these other countries. And so Stephen was actually on a trip to Haiti and saw this firsthand and thought, there's got to be something we can do. And that's how Zelise actually developed. And so, again, by providing these packs, you can reverse malnutrition. We're talking about malnutrition that causes blindness, malnutrition that causes kids to not be able to hear, to be able to develop a normal brain, to be able to walk. You can reverse that malnutrition within 2 months if they have the right stuff. And again, these nutrition packs were developed by Dr. De Silva specifically for that. So how do you get involved? Well, you can buy retail. You can come to me or you can come to Daniel and you can buy retail. You can be a preferred customer, again, through one of us, where basically you get a percentage discount off of the retail price. Or if you prefer things like Sam's and Costco and you want to buy wholesale, which, honestly, who wouldn't rather buy wholesale, then you can get involved with the company and buy it at wholesale and then turn around and sell it. The cool thing about our company is that it actually does have a career path. You can get paid 7 different ways. Any other job I've ever worked, I got paid one way. If I clock in, I get paid. If I clock out, I don't get paid. With this one, you've got 7 different ways that you can actually get paid. And again, I do this part-time. I work at my store 50 to 60 hours a week. So this is very part-time for me. But the income potential is definitely there. So the first way you sell it, obviously, is if you're buying at wholesale, you turn around and sell it at retail and you put the difference in your pocket. And that's different than a lot of network marketing companies that I've heard about, where you don't necessarily have the freedom to do that. Well, with this one, you do. And so the more you sell, the more you make. Second way you get paid is team building. So this is a binary system, which is different than, again, traditional network marketing companies, or, what they call multi-level marketings. This is not a multi-level marketing setup. This is a network marketing. So you have a left and a right team. And all it takes for you to be activated and start earning commissions is to personally sign one person up on your left and one on your right, and then you're off and running. And so you can see at the bottom there, different ranks. If you're an associate, you can make up to $250 a week just this one way of building a team. Whereas if you get up to a diamond level, you can make up to 15 grand a week just on this one level. And we'll talk about in a minute different levels to join at, those being bronze, silver, and gold. So if you sign up as a gold package member, you automatically you can immediately in week one earn up to $2,500 a week. And again, this is powerful. You'll see a lot of companies that give away vehicles or this, that, or the other. Well, Zalease does that as well. If you get to what's called the area ambassador, you earn a Jeep. That's where the company will pay anywhere from $400 to $1,200 a month, again, depending on your rank, for you to go buy a new Jeep. Cars, I've never wanted a Jeep, never had one, but I can tell you that when someone else is making the car payment, it sure does drive a lot better. The level before area is called city. Once you get to city, the company gives you a blessing bonus. And this is just another way to pay it forward, another way that they give back. Blessing bonus is basically anywhere from $100 to $500 a month, where they just give you additional money. And the only caveat for you receiving that money is that you give it away. It can be to someone who a family member, relative, friend who's in need down right now. You can give it to the waitress at lunch, local charity, church, organization. You just have to give it away. And about every other time, they ask that you take a picture or something to verify that you're actually giving that away. So that's amazing way to make a big difference in your own community. My first blessing bonus, my daughter gave it to her school. My second one, my son gave it to his school, was having a drive for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. He gave that to them. And then my most recent one, my wife gets to pick where it goes, and she hadn't decided yet. But anyway, that's pretty cool. And then the way they've made it a career path, most people who have a corporate job, they don't leave because what? They have health care and they have a retirement account. Well, it's kind of unheard of for network marketing companies to offer that. But if you get to a certain rank, which is regional for healthcare, you reach regional, they're going to start kicking in for your healthcare. All you got to do is send them a bill showing, hey, this is what my healthcare is, and they'll reimburse you up to whatever you qualify, up to $1,500 a month, for you to turn around and pay that to your insurance company. And then also at regional, you qualify for the global pool, which is where all sales of the whole company, they put 2% of the whole sales into a pile, and everybody that's at that level, they split it up equally and give it to them. Pretty amazing. Some of this stuff is pretty in-depth and detailed. I won't go into all of it, but generational bonuses that's basically where you come up with your residual income. As you start to build a team and that thing kind of grows, you get residual or matching income off of people that you may never even meet. So that's pretty cool. Infinity bonuses, again, these are paid off of people that are signing up or buying product. Again, it may be someone in Kentucky that I've never met, but because they're part of my organization, I can benefit from that. So how do you become successful? We kind of talked about it earlier. You be a great share person. I don't sell anything. As a pharmacist, I give to somebody what the doctor's already told them to take, right? So I'm not a very good salesman. And so I was very apprehensive about this because that's just not, that's not my ability. That's not my skill set, is to be a great salesman. But if I have a product that I believe in, and I see benefits, I'm going to tell people about it. It's like a great restaurant. I went and ate at Red Prime for the first time couple weeks ago. I've told about 50 people, hey, I love that place. You know, when you have something that you're excited about, you tell people, you don't keep it to yourself. So you share this, hey, you know, cousin in Texas who has migraines, try this out. And, you know, that's all you got to do is just share it with people, because the product, you know, especially hemp oil, it sells itself. So we talked about how do you get involved. There's different levels. Your basic package, where you can sign up and be an ambassador, is the bronze package. It's a cost of $199. It qualifies you for 10% of your binary earnings. Again, that's depending on your rank, but you can, you know, you can make money off of that, and matching. And when you sign up for bronze, you get one large bottle of hemp oil and then one of the mini bottles that we put people on the challenge with of hemp oil. There's a silver package, which, you know, if you know, kind of the bronze is basically someone who, hey, I love the product. It really works for me and my family. You know, I want to be able to buy it at wholesale and just use it for us. This is a way to go. I mean, because, you know, you're getting a little bit of product, but then you can just turn around and order it for wholesale and use as much or as little as you need. If you want to try to build a team and start your own business, the minimum would be probably trying to come in at silver, because now you've got a little bit of product to be able to sell and also to issue challenges with people. So that's a $599 investment, increases your binary team percentage to 15%. And you get 2 large bottles of hemp oil and a dozen of the minis. And then the gold package is the one for anybody that, you know, really thinks they're going to try to tackle this. You know, this is basically buying a franchise for $1,300. That's a pretty good deal. And so for $1,300, you get, now you've increased your binary team compensation to the max that it can go at 20%. You're automatically qualified to make up to $2,500 a week off that binary team, and you get more product. You're going to get 7 full bottles and 2 dozen of the mini bottles to be able to issue challenges and sell people. And so, again, I came in at gold, and by the time that I sold, which I didn't, I gave away a lot because I have family members and other people that I wanted to try to benefit from it. But, you know, if you do the math, if you sell these, every one of them, you've already made about $500. And so, you know, there's no looking back after that. So something really, really interesting. What does the future hold? Okay, this is not me saying this. This is not Zalise saying this. These are things like Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Time, very trusted publications. The hemp CBD space is projected to grow by 700% in 2 years. I mean, if you look at your watch, 2020 is 2 years and 3 days away. I mean, it's on us. And so if you can get in on the ground floor of something that's growing 700%, you know, if I were to tell you, I guarantee you that there's a stock that's going to go up 700% in the next year, would you want to buy it? Yeah. And you wouldn't buy just one. You'd buy as many as you could. So, and with Zalise, here's what's cool. Can you see my mouse arrow at all? You can? Awesome. So here's where Zalise is. We call it, most people call that the ground floor. When you talk to Steven, who's our CEO, he calls it the basement floor because we're not even to the ground yet. You know, we've already formulated all of our products, but we haven't even really, right now there's less than 7,000 ambassadors in Zalise across the nation, right? We're basically concentrated in about 3 states. Oklahoma is getting a little more concentrated. Really, the biggest was in Indiana, and then Kentucky and Illinois have some folks. But once you get to this line, it's called the 90% line, okay? It's called that because 90%, and this is across all network marketing. This is across, I mean, if you look at huge corporations in America, 90% of the money is made by the people that started to the left of that line, okay? And as you can see, we're pretty far to the left of that line still. So once this thing, any company you're talking about, once it starts to build steam and people start getting on board and you get to this right here, which is called momentum, I mean, that's where things drastically change. And the people that are over here, they really start potentially making lots and lots of money. Now, there's going to be people that come in way over here and still do very, very, very well because they're good. They have connections and they do the right thing. Now you get way out over to here and you're talking about where Mary Kay is, you know. You can come in over here right now on Mary Kay, it's going to be really, really hard for you to make money. But if you'd have got in on Mary Kay right here, you and your kids would never have to work again. So that's what's exciting. And again, when you're talking about a space that's going to grow 700%, the opportunities are limitless. So again, you know, you can get started and create your own business and start changing people's lives. Whoever invited you onto this this webinar, just get back with them, and they can help you with that. Some of this other stuff is kind of in depth, but anyway, that's what I've got. And I would love, again, I don't have a time constraint, so I'm here as long as y'all want to be here. I'll open it up to questions and answer any of the science questions or any of the business questions that you guys might have. So I don't know. It may work best for you guys to do the chat instead of unmuting everybody and 5 people talking at once. But I'll leave that up to Daniel. He can do it how he wants. We got to have at least one question, right? I can't get back to the chat feature.
I'm in it. There's nothing else.
Okay, wait, here we go.
There we
go. Is this, I don't know what BOFA is, Ron. Ultracell would not be FSA eligible. At least from what I've seen at point of sale in a pharmacy is that you have to have a scannable receipt label from a pharmacy to be able to pay with a FSA. The only way the insurance would ever cover it is if it became FDA approved. And for something to be FDA approved, it has to be big pharma. So if you ever see Pfizer or Lilly or one of those big companies getting involved in hemp oil, which they won't because they can't get a patent on something that has 400 different ingredients. But that would be the only way it would gain FDA approval. Dosage for a person with diabetes. So I have a friend on here right now. Her name is Helen. And I don't know, Helen, if you want to, I don't see you where I can unmute you. Daniel might. Oh, wait, here we go. I can. Can you hear me, Helen? Helen is one of the most amazing stories of hemp oil that we've seen. Helen is a lady who we met. And when we met her and when she got started on this, she was on, you guys aren't gonna believe this, she was on 32 prescription medications. She started taking hemp oil, and after 2 weeks, she had cut that number in half down to about 15. And her blood sugar, she's a diabetic, her blood sugars had changed just like unbelievably to where her doctors thought something's wrong with her. Her story is amazing. And now, she's not typing or anything, but I think that she's down now to less than 10 medications in less than 3 months. And the only thing that she's changed in her, she hasn't changed her diet. She hasn't changed her amount of, well, she has changed her amount of exercise because now she has energy to do it. But prior to that, I mean, she didn't change anything besides adding hemp oil. It's been amazing. So, but to answer your question about diabetes, I would say at least twice a day. And again, just going to be 100% honest. We haven't seen results in everyone with diabetes. We've seen some, like Helen, that have had dramatic results. But I have a young lady who works for us. Her husband is a diabetic, and he tried it for 2 months, and his sugars never changed. Now, he got benefit in other areas of his life, but his sugars never changed. So I would say at least twice a day for someone who's diabetic. Sorry. How many bottles with the gold package? You get 7 large bottles, 7 of the full 30 ml bottles, and 2 dozen of the mini bottles. Best way for someone to approach in your area. great question. The only way that I was sold on this, and the only way that I've been able to sell my other pharmacist friends and physician friends and people that are PAs and nurse practitioners, is to show them that there is science behind the endocannabinoid system, because it's not something they taught us about in school. They don't teach this in medical school. They don't teach it in pharmacy school. They don't teach it in PA school. You have to go out and find this information. And if you start to just casually search, you're going to find more information than you know how to process. And so you have to engage them that way, because, you know, everybody sitting here at these computers have heard, hey, I've got a great business opportunity for you. Immediately, you're going to kind of shut your ears and you're not going to listen. But if you say, hey, I've got something that has some science behind it that, you know, is literally changing people's lives, and here's the facts, and research it yourself, then you've got a pretty good shot to at least pique their interest. 7 large, 24. Yep. Type 1, type 2. From my experience and from what I've seen from different people, we're seeing better response in type 2 diabetics than we are in type 1 diabetics, just because it actually helps beta cells to secrete more insulin. People with type 1 diabetes don't have beta cells that can do that. Now, there's other ways, you know, that they're studying in which it can work by increasing insulin sensitivity to where the insulin actually goes in the body to do its work, makes it more receptive to it. Helps with glycogenesis and some other things. So again, it's not to say that it can't work in a type 1, just seeing more benefit in type 2s. Ultracell says that it's 500 milligrams. So that's 500 milligrams in the full 30 ml bottle. So that works out to 16.67 milligrams per ml. Helen, you're on 0 medications now. That's unbelievable. Again, she started out on 32, guys, and now she's saying she's on 0. It won't unmute her. That's crazy. I haven't seen her in about a month, so I didn't know that. That's unbelievable. 60, yeah. Yeah, she was on an insulin pump with U5000 insulin, which I've never dispensed out of my pharmacy in 10 years. That's a really, really concentrated high stuff. Got down to U100, and now she's been off of insulin totally for 17 days. So those people asking diabetic questions, that right there is our poster child diabetic. Because her A1C, if I remember right, was like 11, which is not good. For those of you who don't know what an A1C of 11 means. Someone's asking, how much is it? You're going to have to, I don't know what you mean by that. How much is what? Yeah, her A1C was 12 and now it's 6.4. Yes, I can tell you. The reason, so Dr. De Silva in Florida, Dr. De Silva runs a rehab clinic for drug and alcohol people. CBD has been studied and shown that in the brain, there's chemical dependence center basically in your brain. CBD has been shown to go in and suppress that to where if I have a craving, I'm just going to use nicotine for an example. I don't know that it helps a lot with nicotine. I haven't seen any studies in that, but I have a constant craving for nicotine. There's a spot in my brain that fires that need, that want, and it's basically a focal spot. Well, for drugs and alcohol, they share that spot. CBD goes in there and shuts that down, not off, but shuts it down, regulates it to the point where you can get off of stuff, or they're seeing people get off of drugs and alcohol. Anybody that he has come to him for any drug addiction, he puts them on 3 ml or 1 ml of Ultracell 3 times a day. So they're on 3 mLs a day, it's broken up. Anybody with alcohol, he only does it twice a day, 1 ml twice a day. And he says he's in the 6 or 8 months that he's been doing that, he's seen more success stories and more people walk away having had success getting off of drugs and alcohol than he had in his previous 10 years combined. So that's pretty amazing. And so again, to answer the very basic, non-in-depth answer to your question is it goes into your brain and shuts off that craving mechanism.
Hey, Aaron, I got a private question that came in for success stories for lupus.
My wife's best friend has had lupus for many, many years, and we tried to get her to try this product for about 3 months, and she kept telling us that we were trying to sell her weed, and she wouldn't do it. And finally, one day, we convinced her, and she came. We just gave her a little bottle, and she came back 2 days later and said, "Okay, I believe you. I'm in." So, while I don't know that it's foundationally going to change lupus, lupus sufferers have they suffer from so many different conditions that are caused by the lupus that hemp oil can help. It's kind of like MS. There's never any studies out there that show that people with MS are going to be cured when they start taking hemp oil, but their lives are drastically changed because their spasticity is down, their neuropathy, their pain is down. And so same thing with lupus. Again, we're not curing lupus, but we are drastically changing the negative side effects that disease state causes. So when you're selling it, so it's kind of the company does not set a basically MSRP. They set a price of you cannot sell it below this. So in Ada, we have quite a few people here that are on the team. We have all agreed that we sell the full size bottles of Ultracell for $145, and we sell the minis for $37. Okay, so that gives you an idea. I know that in Indiana, they sell them for around, I think about $8 cheaper than us for the big bottles. They do them for about $130. It's about $135, and then they do the minis for the same $35, $37. So is this person that's been on Lortab or Norco and Xanax for 18 years off of it now? If so, that's amazing. But I'm not surprised by it. I've seen it. Again, we have a pain doc in town, and we've seen people that come to us taking 8 or 10 Norco a day, get on the hemp oil, come back in a few weeks later, and they're down to taking 1 or 2 if they need it. And then anybody, not everybody, but a big majority of people that are on pain management therapy go to a pain doc. A lot of those people are on a benzodiazepine for stress and anxiety. What's interesting is that as they come off of their pain medicine, they also can get off of those, because now they're not walking around always feeling like, man, I'm a drug addict, man, I'm going to get in trouble. Their stress and anxiety goes so far down, A, because they're not in pain as much, and B, because they don't have these huge mass quantities of, controlled narcotics they're carrying around with them. Yeah. Again, lupus is a neurologic condition, and hemp CBD oil works wonders in neurologic conditions and inflammatory conditions. That's awesome, dude. That you're down to 1 Norco a day and no Xanax. That's so cool. Okay, so a large bottle is a 30 ml bottle, so it has 30 full 1 ml doses in it. So again, for me, 1 bottle will last a month. Obviously, if you have to take it more, just depends on how much. And that's again why I tell people, let's be aggressive in the beginning. Let's see what it can do for you. Then let's back it down to maintain a good effect, but save you money. I mean, because again, the only side effect it is it hits hard on the wallet. And then the mini bottles have 7 full doses, right? And so that's what we issue, a 7-dose challenge. The company promotes it as a 7-day challenge, but again, just from my experience, 7 days for me is different than somebody else. So I call it a 7-dose challenge, and go from there. Wholesale cost is different depending on the quantity you buy. They give you a break if you buy in bulk. And so let me see. I can get that breakdown for you real quick. I mean, basically, the best you can buy it for would be $12 per mini. And now that's before tax and shipping. So after tax and shipping, you're looking at about around $14 for a mini, and then you turn around and sell it for 37. That's a pretty good markup. And then for the large bottle, you can get it down to around 48. So after tax and shipping, let's just say a smooth $50 per bottle, and you can sell it for, like I said, 135, 140 in there. That's a great markup. Yeah, Brandon's saying that he's got some people that don't take a full dose. And again, I talked about my wife. My wife, she does a half a dose. She does a half a dose twice a day, most of the time. Half a dose mid to late morning to help with her stress and anxiety, and then a half a dose at night. So again, a full bottle lasts her a month also. But got some people that are on a half a dose once a day. That's going to be one bottle's going to last them 2 months. They're doing a study. They're asking about breast cancer and CBD. They're doing a study in Europe right now, a big study, because the preliminary result of this study is that CBD kills about 12 different cancer cell types. It kills them. It doesn't alter them. It doesn't deform them to where they die. It kills them on the spot. And so, yeah, they're doing a huge study. Breast cancer is one of the there are several different types of breast cancer cells that are one of the ones responding to CBD. Also, I think I skipped over it, but if you, on my slides, anandamide kills breast cancer cells. And again, I skipped over that too. I talked about FAW. FAW is what breaks down anandamide. CBD blocks FAW. So if you get rid of FAAH, now you have more anandamide in your body because it's not being broken down immediately. And again, anandamide does wonderful things in the body and also, again, kills breast cancer cells.
Hey, Aaron, there's one that looks like we might have missed. It says, can you go over in more depth about Coumadin and hemp oil? Should they talk with a doctor? What if the doctor says no? Find another doctor, question.
I don't ever recommend, finding another doctor unless it's a doctor that you didn't like anyway. But so what happens with any of those 4 medicines that I talked about having an interaction is those medicines are broken down by an enzyme system in the liver called cytochrome P450 enzyme system. And you have enzymes in there that can compete, or drugs or substances can compete for being broken down by those, okay? And so hemp CBD oil on paper is broken down by the same enzymes that break down Coumadin or warfarin is the other name for it. Okay, so again, on paper, that could be scary because now, let's say it stops, CBD is actually an inducer, so it's going to cause your body to clear Coumadin much faster. So now your blood's going to get very thick, leading for a chance of you to get a clot, right? Clots are not good. That's bad. So again, we haven't honestly seen it in clinical practice. There haven't been a lot of cases. Now, again, not studied. Hemp CBD oil hasn't been around for tons of years, so there's not a huge pool of data, but we're just not seeing it in clinical practice. But on paper, it's enough to warrant serious consideration of, I'm not going to tell you to go take 3 doses a day if you're taking Coumadin or any of those other medicines. I'm going to say, hey, let's start with a 1/4 or half a dose per day. And then make sure your doctor's aware. Let's follow your, if you're on Coumadin, let's follow your PTINR a little closer to make sure that, A, you're not walking around with water blood to where you're just going to bleed everywhere. And B, you're not walking around with concrete blood to where you're going to have a clot all the time. But definitely, definitely talk to the doctor. Pretty much all doctors now have heard of this. I would say 80% of them or more don't know much about it, but unless they're living under a rock, they've heard of it. Studies children with autism. Yes, there are studies out there with children with autism, ADD, ADHD. There's another condition. It just escaped me. Can't think of the name of it. But there's actually lots of, I say lots. There are some studies going on now in kiddos with, they call them spectrum disorders. So a lot of those are being looked at with this. And I can tell you, not from my kids, but personally from very good friends of mine, have had wonderful success with ADD in their kids. That again, it's subjective, but parents know their kids better than anybody. And they're saying that they feel like their kids are responding as well or better to this as they have ever Vyvanse, Adderall, Ritalin, any of those. And the benefit is their kids have appetite back, so they're eating, and then they don't have to take another medicine at bedtime to help them sleep. So yeah, great with that. Autism and Tourette's, there's evidence in. I still can't think of the name of that other condition, but yeah, there are some stuff. A breastfeeding question. Can you take it while breastfeeding? I get that question a lot, and my answer is I can't endorse it, just because there's not any studies in pregnant women or in breastfeeding women, and there's not going to be, again, because you don't have Pfizer paying billions and billions of dollars to fund that study. So if I would not encourage my wife to do it while she was breastfeeding. Now, the caveat and the interesting thing to that is if I had a kid who was 15 or 18 months or older, I would give it to them. But I just don't know enough in a developing neonate, a new baby or a young baby that's breastfeeding to say, sure, go for it. So I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, you can read Helen's comments. Yeah, so the drug interactions with CBD and chemo, that's what chemotherapy is crazy. It has drug interactions with a lot of stuff. So again, I'm a cancer survivor. I had cancer when I was 22 years old, and I've been cancer free for a long time. But having said that, I know a lot of oncologists, and I know a lot of oncologists who flat out tell their patients, use it, take it. I think you're going to benefit from it. So, but having said that, they also need to monitor their chemotherapy. If someone's on active chemotherapy and they're taking it weekly, bi-weekly, however they're doing it, again, chemotherapy has a lot of drug interactions. Most chemotherapies are cleared by the liver. So, on paper, again, there's potential that those two could jack with each other. And far be it from me to be the guy who says, yeah, go for it, and then something messes up. So I would definitely talk to my oncologist about that. Epilepsy. Someone asked about epilepsy. The number one thing that CBD is studied in is seizures, epilepsy. By far and away, the number one thing. It's approved as a medical use in lots of states for seizures and epilepsy, and it can do tremendous things for seizures. Great story out of California. Basically, I'll sum it up. Kid had seizures for a very long time. They had him maxed out on 6 different seizure medications. I say kid, he was like 20. And he was still having seizures, 4 or 5 a day on 6 different anti-seizure medicines. They were desperate because, he was losing ability. He gotten to where he couldn't tie his shoes anymore. He wasn't able to learn new things, was starting to forget things because of these seizures. Those parents were desperate. They got him on hemp CBD. They actually got him on the Pure 7 product when it first came out years ago. And this kid, within a week, went from having 4 or 5 seizures a day to where he hadn't had a seizure in a week. And they were like, this is crazy. So they talked to the neurologist, and the neurologist was like, I think it's coincidental, but keep taking it. Who cares? Kid, he didn't have seizures for a long time. And so the neurologist was, I mean, a pretty cool dude. And he said, okay, well, let's just start taking some of these seizure medicines off and see what happens. So long story short, less than 6 months later, the kid's on 0 seizure medications, only the CBD oil, and has about 1 seizure every 5 months. It's been and has been doing that for like 3 years. So pretty amazing. Again, thank you guys all for coming. If you have questions, you know, you can, my email is Aaron@tradition. Here, I'll type it in. Email me questions if you want to. Otherwise, like I said, get back with whoever invited you on this webinar. And, you know, again, if you are in the market to feel better and live healthier, this is a great product for you. If you're sick and hurting in the wallet, this is a great company to try to help you. So appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for being